Hey guys, Matt here, Reg Brewery. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. This is my blonde ale that I brewed a couple weeks back. It's getting to be very nicely carbonated. I just kind of did the set it and forget it method with this one. Put it in the kegerator, set it to 10 psi with the other beer that's in there, and just let it roll. So it's probably been almost to exactly 2 weeks now, just kind of chilling there. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. Got a good color to it. It's not totally clear. I can kind of see through it, and maybe that's as far as it will go. I don't know, but it looks fine to me. Cheers. Yeah, it's got a nice taste to it. It's really nothing special, nothing to really write home about. It's a pretty basic blonde ale recipe that I kind of came up with, and I made a couple of tweaks to what I had already kind of envisioned for that beer. If you want to see the brew day footage of it, it's from I have it in last week's video. But basically, yeah, it's got a Maris Otter base to it. I put some carapils and some torrefied wheat in there to kind of help it along with a little bit of extra roundiness to the beer, and also to kind of help with the head retention. And the torrefied wheat was supposed to help a little bit with the clarity, at least from what I've done with the other wheat beers. It kind of helps out a little bit with getting a little bit less of the wheat look to the beer, because a lot of wheat beers can tend to be a bit cloudy, and that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be totally see-through, but the torrefied wheat I've noticed has helped it clear out a little bit, so I figured I'd give that a shot. And then I also added in the Gold Pils Vienna. Now I did that partially because of a bit of a test. So I rebrewed the apple cinnamon wheat beer, and I have brew day footage I want to tack onto the end of this for you guys to check out. Basically, I'm rebrewing it because that's a beer that I'm going to enter into NHC. I already have it registered. I'm going into the fruit beer category. I figured it would probably get dinged if I put it into the American wheat category for what it is. But I liked how the original came out when I brewed it a few weeks back, where the apples and the cinnamon came through. But I wanted to get it to be more of an apple pie type of a beer, so I wanted to get like a graham crackery kind of crust addition into it, is kind of what I was going for there. And I thought that the cinnamon could use a little bit of turning it up a little bit on that. So and the apple came through perfectly fine, so I don't have any trouble with that. So I rebrewed it with a couple modifications, and I brewed this with the Gold Pils Vienna so that I could see for myself what that kind of brings to the beer. I know that I've heard that it helps with getting that sort of graham crackery taste to a beer. But of course, like anything else, probably use it in moderation. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Vienna malt, just regular Vienna malt. I feel like too much is too much. It definitely helps, kind of give that bready, biscuity, nutty kind of a taste to a beer. But it almost like to me, it seems a bit strong and overpowering if you put too much into a beer. And that's just, I think that just comes with personal preference. So with that in mind, I only put in 8 ounces of Gold Pils Vienna into this. And I feel like just tasting it, I could definitely pull that out of this beer for sure, because I know what everything else in this beer tastes like. And I think that that's probably the upper limit of how much I would stick in a beer like this. I'm definitely getting some of that graham cracker taste for sure, and it's definitely tasting a little bit more bready, a little bit more nutty than what else is in here, like the Maris Otter and the carapils. But I believe that the Maris Otter is probably helping it out as well. I could see exactly what Gold Pils Vienna is giving to this beer, so that'll help me kind of move that one along. Now, along with this beer, that's related to this beer, Dennis and I brewed a collab beer earlier today. Thank you, Dennis. It was a lot of fun brewing with you again. It's been quite a while since we've done anything like that. And we brewed the Hoppy Blonde Ale, which is basically our take on what the hoppy beer experiment was with BrewTubers recently. But we wanted to use up some hops that we've been holding on to for a while. And thank you for past sponsors of experiments for BrewTubers. We, from a couple years back, we had some leftover hops from Hopsteiner, so we went ahead and used quite a bit of Trident. I ended up for what we were going for the same IBU number, so I ended up needing to use 8.5 ounces of Trident in the Whirlpool to achieve the IBUs that we were going for in, towards the end for the aroma. The sample of it tastes amazing. I was a little bit worried about putting that much hops. I think that's probably the upper limit of amount of hops I've ever stuck in a beer. So, fortunately, there was very little going into the bittering charge, so it's not going to be a very bitter beer, but we'll get a lot out of those hops. And I believe, if I recall, they were supposed to impart like a citrus, floral, pininess, some of those type of characteristics. So we'll see. I think grapefruit might have been on the list as well. So we'll see what that turns out to here in a little bit. It's actually pressure fermenting. I did pick up a second tilt because I wanted to I've been wanting to have a second one. There's been plenty of times, and today's another example of I have an overlap. The Juggernaut doesn't exactly, it may start off really good, but it does a gradual fermentation. So the beer that's in the chamber for the apple cinnamon wheat is still, I believe it's done. It's a 10-10, but I still have to cold crash it. I still have to, I still want it to kind of sit there for a couple of days. So I'm not ready to move that beer just yet. And I had another one coming into the pipeline now with me and Dennis brewing something. So, and that's not the first opportunity that's come up. So I like having a second tilt around now, and I can keep an eye on all the beers if I ever have any overlap again. But that's really all I have for this week. Yeah, so you guys can check out the brewing footage of that apple cinnamon. I'll put that here at the end of this, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Happy Homebrew Wednesday. Cheers. All right, another brew day. We're doing that apple cinnamon wheat again. This time critique the recipe slightly. This is the one I'm going to try to enter into the NHC. Well, we just started the mash. Looking pretty good. Everything's so far working all right. We're mashing in at 151, 150. Right there. And we're just cooling down a sample right now so I can check the pH. Alright, we've got 10 minutes left on the clock. We're going to go ahead and add in the yeast nutrient, the Whirlfloc tablet, and the cinnamon. So last time I did a half a teaspoon of cinnamon powder, which is the equivalent of 1 cinnamon stick. And I do want to get a little bit more cinnamon in this, so I'm going to add in 2 cinnamon sticks this time. Alright. Alright, and just like before, we're getting down to the last few minutes of the boil. This is where I like to open up all the valves. We got the chiller all hooked up. The water's not on, of course. But this way we can get the air bubbles out. Very good practice. Definitely seems to help out with everything. And this way the chiller is nice and sanitized as well. Alright, we'll go ahead and turn that on. And we'll get a good whirlpool started while we're boiling. And then we'll start chilling here pretty soon. Alright, we're chilling. Oh, we've chilled. Now we're transferring. Didn't want it to really get too cold because we're going to use a Kavaiki. So what are we at now? We're at 75-ish. That's probably a good starting point. And pretty much got this going almost full. Give it good aeration going in there. Filtering out any last minute particulate that might be there. But we're looking pretty clean, pretty good. And just did a hydrometer reading. It says 1050 on the refractometer, which is what exactly I was after, was 1050. There's a Kavaik. I'm not going to bother with a starter this time because the last couple of starters I did with the cultured Juggernaut that I have in these little vials has just taken off and had 0 issues, so I don't expect any issues to be with this either. So yeah, we're going to give this a go and get to fermenting. Alright, good aerated wort. It's about 5.5 gallons, just under actually, so it's like 5 1/4. Close enough because we want 5 gallons into the keg when we're done. And there's the Juggernaut. I just sort of decanted the top of it. There's just really water there, but I just want to make sure. Yep. Let's make sure we get all that in there. Very good. Yeah, that should do. We'll go ahead and put the tilt in here. Sealed up, and away she goes. There we go, everything's all put away, cleaned out, washed out, star sand out. Nice and clean, ready for the next brew day. And I haven't done this in a few brews. I like to do this every now and then, you know, every maybe a few months. I like to take apart these, I mean, everything has star sand running through it, but I like to take everything apart real good. Just make sure, you know, just double check the O-rings. Make sure everything's still in good shape in there. Check the impellers. Just make sure everything's looking good. And this way it gets a nice thorough drying as well. And yeah, everything's still in good shape. So I always just like to double check every so often. It's always good to make sure all your parts and everything's running as it should. And there she is, all tucked away. Just going to use the Brewtech bucket like I did last time for this beer, as I don't want to change too many variables. This beer has turned out really good. I just wanted to add in a little bit of the graham crackery taste for the crust. Essentially is what I'm going for the wrecked apple pie. And Juggernaut's in there, and I don't expect for it to blow out, so I got the airlock there. And we're currently set at 76. That's actually what it's at too. That's what it came out with. The chilling came out, I think it was about 75 when it came out. So, yep, we just sit here and wait and watch it.